The hospital room was quiet except for the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor. Charlie lay curled on his bed, his headphones snug over his ears. His face, pale and gaunt, bore the marks of a 3-year battle with cancer. Yet, when Adele's voice poured into his ears from his headphones, his world seemed a little less heavy. Outside his window, the vibrant laughter of children echoed from the park. He squinted against the sunlight, watching a group of boys his age playing soccer. A part of him yearned to be there, running with the wind on his face, but the reality of his frail body tethered him to his hospital bed. Charlie, his mother Sarah's voice broke through his thoughts. She was sitting by his bed, knitting a bright yellow scarf. Her eyes, though tired, sparkled with love. "Do you want anything? A snack? Some juice?" He pulled off his headphones and smiled faintly. "No, Mom. I'm okay." He paused. "Actually, can you sit here for a moment?" She moved closer, abandoning the scarf. "Of course, sweetheart. What's on your mind?" "I was just thinking," he began, hesitating. "Do you think dreams ever come true?" "Dreams?" she repeated softly, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. "Yeah," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Like meeting someone you really admire. Do you think that could happen?" Her heart twisted as she understood. 4 months, Adele's music had been Charlie's constant companion, her voice a balm for his pain. "You mean Adele?" she said, her lips curving into a gentle smile. Charlie nodded. "I know it's crazy. I mean, she's super famous. But it would be amazing." Sarah squeezed his hand, her resolve hardening. "It's not crazy, Charlie. And you never know what's possible." "Really?" he asked, his eyes lighting up briefly. "Really," she affirmed. "Now you get some rest and let me see what I can do." As Charlie drifted off to sleep, Sarah sat quietly, her mind racing. The idea of making her son's dream come true seemed impossible, but she couldn't ignore the spark of hope she'd seen in his eyes. She had to try. Sarah woke early the next morning, determination replacing the weariness that had settled into her bones. With her laptop balanced on her knees, she began her search. Her first stop was Adele's official website, where she found the contact information for her management team. She drafted a heartfelt email, pouring out Charlie's story and his wish. "Dear Adele's team," she began, her fingers trembling. "My name is Sarah, and I'm the mother of a remarkable 10-year-old boy named Charlie. He's been battling cancer for 3 years, and through it all, your music has been his greatest comfort." She hit send and leaned back, her breath shaky. It was a long shot, but it was a start. Later that day, she shared Charlie's story on social media, adding the hashtag song for Charlie. She described his love for Adele, the solace her music brought him, and his one wish to meet her. Within hours, friends and family began to share the post, their words of encouragement lifting her spirits. At the hospital, Sarah sat with Dr. Kumar, Charlie's oncologist, discussing his condition. "He's weaker," Dr. Kumar admitted gently. "We're doing everything we can to keep him comfortable, but his body it's struggling." Sarah nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. "I need to do something for him, Dr. Kumar. Something that makes him truly happy." The doctor smiled kindly. "I think your efforts to bring Adele into his life are admirable. If there's anything I can do to help, let me know." Sarah left the meeting feeling a renewed sense of purpose. As she walked back to Charlie's room, she checked her phone. Notifications flooded her screen. Likes, shares, and comments from strangers who had come across her post. Some offered words of encouragement, while others tagged celebrities in the hopes of spreading the message further. That night, as Sarah sat by Charlie's bed, she whispered a silent prayer. "Please let this work. Let him have this one moment of joy." The morning was unusually still, the quiet hum of the hospital broken only by the distant chatter of nurses and the faint whirring of machines. Sarah sat in the corner of Charlie's room, a steaming cup of coffee in her hands. Sleep had been elusive the past few nights, her mind consumed by the overwhelming need to make his dream come true. She stared at her phone, watching as the views, likes, and shares on her posts steadily climbed. The hashtag song for Charlie had begun to gain traction, and every new notification was a glimmer of hope. Strangers commented with heartfelt messages of support, many of them tagging Adele's official account. Yet, as much as the growing attention buoyed Sarah's spirits, she couldn't ignore the gnawing fear that it still might not be enough. Later that day, Sarah received an unexpected call from a local news outlet. "Hi, Mrs. Carson," the reporter began. "My name is Lisa and I work with Channel 7 News. We came across your post about Charlie, and we'd love to do a feature on him." Sarah hesitated. Public attention was not something she sought for herself, and she worried about exposing Charlie to too much. but the thought of amplifying his wish outweighed her reservations. "Yes," she said finally. "If it helps bring Adele's attention to Charlie's story, we'll do it." That evening, a small camera crew arrived at the hospital. Sarah cleared Charlie's room, tidying up the scattered toys and books while a nurse helped freshen him up. Charlie, though weak, was excited to have visitors. His face lit up when the reporter explained why they were there. "You're famous now, buddy," Sarah teased, sitting by his side. "The whole town wants to hear your story." Charlie grinned. "Does Adele know yet?" "We're working on it," Sarah replied, her voice tinged with hope. The interview was brief but poignant. Lisa, the reporter, asked Charlie about his love for music and what Adele's songs meant to him. "They make me feel brave," Charlie said earnestly. "Like even when things are hard, I can still be happy for a little while." Lisa blinked back tears. "That's beautiful, Charlie. If you could say one thing to Adele right now, what would it be?" Charlie thought for a moment, his small hands clutching the blanket draped over him. "I'd say thank you. For helping me feel not so scared." When the interview aired later that night, it struck a chord with viewers across the region. Messages poured in from strangers offering support, sharing their own stories of hardship, and pledging to spread the word. A local radio station dedicated their morning show to playing Adele's music in Charlie's honor, encouraging listeners to tweet at the singer with the hashtag. 2 days later, Sarah's campaign received a boost when Matt Turner, a journalist with a national newspaper, reached out. His tone over the phone was calm but determined. "Sarah, I've covered a lot of human interest stories," he said. "But this one feels different. It's not just about Charlie wanting to meet Adele, it's about the power of hope and connection. I'd like to help bring more attention to this." Sarah hesitated. "I appreciate that, but I'm worried about it becoming too public. This is about Charlie, not a spectacle." "I understand," Matt assured her. "I promise to handle it sensitively. Sometimes the right kind of attention can make all the difference." After some deliberation, Sarah agreed. The next morning, Matt published a heartfelt article about Charlie, detailing his battle with cancer and the solace he found in Adele's music. The story quickly went viral, capturing the attention of people far beyond their small town. As the days passed, Sarah began receiving emails and calls from well-wishers. Some offered to help with logistics, while others simply wanted to express their admiration for Charlie's bravery. The story spread like wildfire, appearing on blogs, social media, and even a segment on a popular morning show. Despite the overwhelming support, Sarah's anxiety grew. She had yet to hear from Adele's team, and every day that passed felt like a missed opportunity. She checked her email obsessively, refreshing the page every few minutes. The strain of waiting, combined with the reality of Charlie's worsening condition, weighed heavily on her. One afternoon, as she sat by Charlie's bed, he opened his eyes and smiled faintly. "Mom, I saw the news. They talked about me." Sarah nodded, her throat tight. "They did, sweetheart. A lot of people care about you." "Do you think Adele cares too?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah's heart broke at the question. "I think she does," she said, squeezing his hand. "And I think she'll let us know soon." That evening, as Sarah sat alone in the hospital cafeteria, her phone buzzed with a new email. Her hands trembled as she opened it. "Dear Sarah, we've seen your posts about Charlie, and Adele is incredibly moved by his story. We'd love to discuss how we can make his wish come true. Please let us know a good time to call." Sarah clapped a hand over her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. Relief and gratitude flooded her as she quickly replied. This was the breakthrough she had been waiting for, a chance to bring her son's dream to life. Returning to Charlie's room, Sarah sat beside him, watching as he slept peacefully. She whispered a silent promise to him. "We're so close, my love. Just hold on a little longer." Sarah read the message over and over again, her heart pounding with anticipation. The email was from Rebecca, a representative from Adele's management team. It was polite and brief, expressing interest in learning more about Charlie's situation. Sarah quickly replied, pouring her heart into the message. "Thank you so much for responding," she began. "Charlie is my world, and his dream is to hear Adele sing for him. He's been through so much, and I truly believe this would bring him the peace he deserves." The next day, Sarah found herself checking her email every few minutes, her anxiety growing with each passing hour. Rebecca's response didn't come immediately, and doubt began to creep into her mind. What if they had only sent a polite acknowledgement and weren't truly interested? Meanwhile, Charlie's condition continued to worsen. His skin was pale and he struggled to stay awake for long periods. Yet when he was awake, his humor and kindness shone through. "Mom," he said one morning, his voice weak but playful. "Why do you look like you haven't slept? You need beauty sleep too, you know." Sarah laughed, masking her worry. "I've been busy, Charlie. But don't you worry about me. You just focus on feeling better." Later that afternoon, as Charlie napped, Sarah's phone buzzed. It was an email from Rebecca. "Hi Sarah. Thank you for reaching out again. Adele has heard about Charlie's story and was deeply moved. We'd like to discuss the possibility of her visiting him. Can we schedule a call to coordinate?" Sarah clutched her phone, tears streaming down her face. Relief washed over her, but so did a new wave of urgency. Time was slipping away and every moment counted. The morning of Sarah's call with Rebecca arrived with an anxious quiet. The hospital room felt smaller than usual, the weight of anticipation pressing down on Sarah's shoulders. She had barely slept, spending the night rehearsing what she would say, how she would explain the importance of this visit, and the urgency of Charlie's condition. She knew this was her chance, perhaps the only one, to make his dream a reality. Charlie, oblivious to the behind-the-scenes efforts unfolding for him, was unusually tired that day. He stirred only briefly to sip some water, giving Sarah a faint smile before drifting back into a light sleep. His frailty was becoming more pronounced, the cancer taking its toll faster than anyone had anticipated. As the clock ticked toward the scheduled time for the call, Sarah retreated to the small lounge at the end of the hospital corridor. With her laptop open and her phone propped against a water bottle, she logged into the video conference Rebecca had set up. Her heart pounded as the screen loaded. The call connected and Rebecca's face appeared. She was a professional-looking woman with kind eyes and a warm smile. "Hi Sarah," Rebecca began. "Thank you so much for speaking with me today." "Thank you for responding," Sarah replied, her voice trembling slightly. "This means the world to me and to Charlie." Rebecca nodded, her expression sincere. "I've read about Charlie's story and it's truly moving. Adele was deeply touched when she heard about him. She wants to help, and we're here to figure out the best way to make this happen." Sarah's breath caught. This was it. "Thank you so much," she said, her voice cracking. "You have no idea what this means to us." Rebecca smiled gently. "We want to make this as special and comfortable as possible for Charlie. Adele has a tight schedule, but she's committed to coming to see him. The main thing we need to coordinate is logistics. Privacy is key. Adele wants this to be about Charlie, not the media." Sarah nodded vigorously. "Of course. We want to keep this quiet too. Charlie isn't strong enough for too much excitement, and the last thing I want is for this to become a spectacle." Rebecca made notes as they talked. "Understood. Our priority is to ensure this visit happens smoothly and soon. Adele is available in about a week, and we can adjust the schedule as needed based on Charlie's condition." A week. The word echoed in Sarah's mind, both a beacon of hope and a cruel reminder of the uncertainty they faced. Charlie's health had been deteriorating rapidly, and she wasn't sure how much time they truly had. "Thank you," Sarah said, swallowing her fear. "We'll do everything on our end to prepare." Rebecca's voice softened. "I can't promise everything will go perfectly, but I want you to know that we'll do our best to make this happen. Adele is personally invested in this." As the call ended, Sarah leaned back in her chair, her emotions a tangled mix of relief and anxiety. She had taken a significant step toward fulfilling Charlie's dream, but now the waiting began again. Returning to Charlie's room, Sarah found him awake, his headphones on, a faint smile playing on his lips. He was listening to Adele as always. "Mom," he said when he noticed her, "where did you go?" "I had some things to take care of," she replied, sitting beside him and taking his hand. "Are you feeling okay?" He nodded, though his weariness was evident. "I was just listening to her voice. It's like, she knows how I feel. Like she's singing just for me." Sarah's throat tightened. If only he knew how close he was to having his wish come true. But she kept the secret, wanting to surprise him when the time was right. In the days that followed, Sarah worked closely with the hospital staff to prepare for Adele's visit. Dr. Kumar was an anchor of support, offering both practical advice and emotional reassurance. "We'll make sure everything is perfect," he promised during one of their meetings. "We can set up a private area in the room, limit visitors, and keep Charlie as comfortable as possible." The nurses, many of whom adored Charlie, eagerly volunteered to help. They brainstormed ways to decorate the room subtly, with elements that would bring warmth without overwhelming him. Sunflowers, his favorite, were chosen for a small vase on his bedside table, their bright petals a symbol of hope. Despite the progress, Sarah couldn't shake her unease. The weight of the ticking clock pressed on her, a relentless reminder of how little time they might have left. One evening, as Sarah sat by Charlie's bed knitting, her phone buzzed with a notification. It was a social media post from someone speculating about Adele's potential visit to the hospital. Her heart sank. Though the speculation was vague, it was enough to send a ripple of fear through her. What if the media frenzy grew out of control? What if it reached Adele's team and they decided it was too risky? She quickly messaged Rebecca, alerting her to the post. "Thank you for letting us know," Rebecca replied promptly. "We'll handle it. Don't worry." Even with Rebecca's reassurance, Sarah couldn't shake her anxiety. The stakes felt impossibly high, and the thought of disappointing Charlie was unbearable. That night, Charlie woke briefly, his hand reaching for Sarah's. "Mom," he whispered, his voice faint. "Do you think dreams come true for people like me?" Sarah's chest tightened. She leaned down and kissed his forehead. "I think dreams come true for the bravest people, and you're the bravest person I know." He smiled weakly, his eyes fluttering closed again. Sarah sat beside him long after he drifted back to sleep, whispering her silent prayer into the quiet night. "Please let this work. Let him have this." At the hospital, Charlie seemed to sense something different in his mother. "You've been smiling a lot," he remarked one evening. "What's going on?" Sarah hesitated. She wanted to tell him, to see his face light up with joy, but she also didn't want to raise his hopes prematurely. "I'm just happy to see you smiling too," she said, dodging the question with a kiss on his forehead. Over the next few days, Sarah worked closely with the hospital staff to prepare for the visit. Dr. Kumar was a constant source of support, ensuring that Charlie's room was comfortable and private. The nurses, many of whom adored Charlie, pitched in to decorate the space subtly, adding touches like fairy lights and a small vase of sunflowers, his favorite. Meanwhile, the online campaign had taken on a life of its own. Though Sarah tried to keep the details of the visit under wraps, speculation was rampant. Journalists began calling the hospital, hoping for a scoop, but Sarah and Dr. Kumar were adamant about maintaining Charlie's privacy. The day of the visit dawned cloudy, with a gentle drizzle misting the hospital windows. Charlie was having a rough morning. He was unusually tired, his breaths labored. Sarah sat by his side, stroking his hand, her heart aching. "Mom," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Do you think I'll have another dream about Adele?" Sarah bit her lip, fighting back tears. "Maybe, sweetheart," she replied. "But sometimes dreams come true even when you're awake." His brow furrowed slightly, but before he could respond, a soft knock sounded at the door. Dr. Kumar entered, his expression unreadable. "Sarah," he said, his tone calm but urgent. "There's someone here to see you." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. She glanced at Charlie, who was drifting back into a light sleep, then followed Dr. Kumar into the hallway. Standing there, in a simple black dress and a long coat, was Adele. Sarah froze, her breath catching in her throat. Adele's face was soft with empathy, her eyes kind as she stepped forward. "You must be Sarah," she said, extending a hand. "It's an honor to meet you." Tears spilled from Sarah's eyes as she shook Adele's hand. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for coming." Adele nodded, her voice gentle. "Let's make this special for him." Adele entered the room quietly, her presence filling the small space. Charlie stirred, his eyes fluttering open. For a moment he stared, confusion clouding his gaze. Then recognition dawned. "Adele?" he murmured, his voice barely audible. She smiled and knelt beside his bed, taking his frail hand in hers. "Hello, Charlie," she said softly. "I've heard you're a big fan." His eyes filled with tears. "Is this real?" "It's real," she assured him, her voice breaking slightly. "I'm here just for you." Charlie's lips trembled as he tried to speak, but the emotion overwhelmed him. Adele gently wiped a tear from his cheek. "Would you like me to sing for you?" He nodded, his smile radiant despite his weakness. Sitting beside his bed, Adele began to sing "Make You Feel My Love." Her voice was soft and pure, every note carrying a depth of emotion that filled the room. Sarah watched, her hand pressed to her mouth, as Charlie's face lit up with a peace she hadn't seen in months. The nurses and Dr. Kumar stood quietly in the hallway, tears streaming down their faces as Adele's voice drifted out into the corridor. For those few minutes, time seemed to stand still. When the song ended, Charlie whispered, "That was perfect. Thank you." Adele leaned forward, kissing his forehead. "You're perfect, Charlie," she said. That night, Charlie slipped into a deep sleep, his breathing steady but faint. Sarah stayed by his side, her heart heavy but full of gratitude. She whispered to him, recounting every moment of Adele's visit, even though she knew he might not hear her. In the early hours of the morning, Charlie took his final breath, a peaceful smile still lingering on his face. Sarah held him close, tears flowing freely, but in her heart she knew he had found the peace he deserved. Adele's visit remained a cherished memory, untouched by the outside world. The hospital staff, Sarah, and Adele herself held the experience close, a sacred moment of grace and kindness. At Charlie's memorial, Sarah spoke of his love for life and music. "Charlie taught me to never stop dreaming," she said. "And through his dream he brought us all together." Adele sent Sarah a handwritten note. "Charlie's light will forever inspire me," it read. "His courage and love reminded me of the power of music and human connection. Though Charlie's life was short, his story touched countless lives. And somewhere in the quiet notes of a song, his spirit lived on."